So we left off with this dynamic of Esau and Jacob and that battle that goes on. I want to look a little bit at when Jacob and his mom devise a plan to steal the blessing from Esau, his brother. And we see it in Genesis 27, and we look at verse 28. What happened? I guess I got to set the stage here. What happened is Esau was out hunting, Jacob was at home, and Jacob's mom, Rebecca, decides, let's get the blessing from your dad. And Jacob's like, how are we going to do that? So Esau's a hunter, he's a hairy guy. When my dad touches me, when he smells me, when he hears me, he's going to say, this is Esau. And so they take some sheepskin and tie it on. I don't know how that works well, but they did it. They're good at this. They put it on his arms so he felt like he's a hairy man, and I guess he stunk himself up a little bit so that it smelled. But Isaac, when he came in, Isaac can't see, but he could hear, and it sounds like Esau, sounds like Jacob, smells like Esau, but sounds like Jacob. And anyway, Jacob gets in there long enough to deceive his dad, and Jacob's asking for this blessing. And it says here in verse 27 of chapter 27, so he came close, Jacob came close and kissed him, and when he smelled the smell of his garment, or Isaac is kissing Jacob, he blessed him and said, see, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. So the trick is working here. Now may God give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and an abundance of grain and new wine. There's this incredible blessing coming from the father. It's important for fathers to bless their children. Isaac thinks he's blessing Esau, but he's actually blessing Jacob, and he's blessing him with this abundant prosperity and blessing of grain and new wine. And then he says this, may peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. And you think he's saying this to Esau, but he's saying it to Jacob. Be master of your brothers. Oh no, this is the very thing, Jacob is that supplanter, that deceiver. That's how he was born, and he's filling out, but the amazing thing is somehow God knows in this whole thing that that's what's going to happen. Jacob is the one who's going to be the receiver of the blessing that God was planning on blessing all along anyway. But the way they did it was a bit in this whole theme of deception. I don't know how you work that out. That's a tough one to work out in our minds sometimes. But it says, many nations will serve you. You be master of your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you. Well, where does that come from? That's the actual blessing of God upon Abraham. So the blessing that he's talking about here is not just some general thing, oh, Dad, bless me. He's talking about receiving the blessing of the line of Abraham, the blessing of God upon a people group. And it comes down from Abraham, Isaac, and now to Jacob, not Esau. So Jacob has fully now supplanted his brother. He's taken away his birthright. He's taken away the blessing of the father, the blessing that's not just of his father, but the blessing designated on this people group by God to Abraham, that those who curse you will be cursed, those who bless you will be blessed, and you'll be master over your brothers. You're going to be the head and not the tail. You're going to be the one that's in the lead here. And so Jacob has lived up to his name to this point now. He's lived up to his name to be the supplanter of his brother, the deceiver of his brother. He's taken away his birthright. He's the heir that gets his father's possessions, and now he's taken away the blessing. Gets the line of Abraham blessing, that even upon his descendants, those that bless them will be blessed, and those that curse them will be cursed. So Jacob's sent away from Canaan. He's in a bad place. I mean, just naturally speaking, his brother's not real happy with him. And I don't think his dad was so happy either. And so he's sent away from Canaan to go to Abraham's original homeland. And this is part of the trip here, is to find himself a wife. And so we get to Genesis chapter 28. And they go back to their own families and their people groups, so that they're marrying within a familiar people group, so that they're not bringing in traditions and cultures and other gods and that kind of thing. So in Genesis 28, verse 10, it says, Then Jacob departed from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he came to a certain place and spent the night there, because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of the place and put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he had a dream, and behold, a ladder was set on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending upon it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. The land in which you lie, I will give it to you and to your descendants. Your descendants shall also be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread out to the west and the east and the north and to the south. And in you and in your descendants shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you, and I will have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. So Jacob arose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar, and he poured oil on its top. And he called the name of the place Bethel. However, previously the name of the city had been Luz. Well, Bethel means house of God. And the stone that he put under his head, he anoints this stone, and we know that there's typology in the Bible, there's foreshadowing in the Bible about this stone, this anointed one, this anointed rock, the chief cornerstone of the building Jesus is eventually referred to and called and prophesied about. And this stone is anointed. Well, Christ or Messiah means the anointed one. And so there's a picture of this. This is, he says, the gate of heaven. This is what did he call it? The house of God, the gate of heaven. He says a ladder set up whose feet are on earth and whose head is in heaven. So much picture here, and we looked at that a little bit in an earlier session, but the picture, even the body of Christ whose feet are on earth but whose head is in heaven right now. Jesus Christ, the head is in heaven, the body, the feet are on earth. And on that is a communication of God's communication to earth with the angels ascending and descending. Jesus referred this imagery to himself when he talked to Nathanael in the New Testament. He said, I said I saw you under the fig tree and you believe, but what happens when you see the angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man? That Jesus is saying he is the ladder. He is the gateway to heaven. He is the house of God. He is all of these things. And that's the picture that we see in Genesis. So in order for us to truly understand the richness of what we find in the New Testament regarding Jesus, we've got to know a little bit about this history so that we see the fullness of this house of God, this gate of heaven, this entryway, and even this picture of the angels ascending and descending. There's a communication, heaven to earth, earth to heaven, that's going on, in this place. And actually it's a foreshadow of over this person that will be the Christ, the anointed one. And so the place is called Bethel, and it becomes an important place in the history of the Old Testament, and we'll see it come up here in just a little bit as we go through the book of Genesis. So Bethel means house of God. So Jacob meets Rachel at a well. Jacob goes to this land. He's passed through Bethel. He meets Rachel at a well and finds she's a relative. He strikes a deal with Laban because he falls in love with Rachel. He thinks, God sent me here for her. Things confirm that. Strikes a deal with Laban, Rachel's father, to work 7 years to obtain her as his wife. Hey, how about that, guys? I'm going to work 7 years just to get this woman as my wife. Wow. Now that's commitment. And of course, the theme of deception goes on in this book of Genesis. We see that Jacob works these 7 years, labors these 7 years, and comes about when it's time for him to get married. Laban says, well, to himself, not to Jacob, I don't want to, marry off my youngest daughter before my older one. So instead of giving him Rachel on the wedding night, he gives him Leah, Rachel's sister. So Jacob wakes up in the morning and finds out he's married Rachel's sister, not Rachel. And so we'll pick up on that in our next session.